Welcome to the Amplify Live podcast channel, where you can access the latest market insights from the head of market analysis, Anthony Chung, and head of trading, Piers Curran, getting you up to speed on what mattered in markets this week. Okay, welcome to episode 2 of the Market Watch on Amplify Live. It's Friday, the 5th of February. It's just gone past 8 a.m. this morning, and I'm joined, as ever, by Head of Trading, Piers.
Good morning. Very good, thanks.
Had a good week?
Yeah, always a good week.
Wow.
It's always a good week when you get to the end, because weekend beckons.
Yeah. We'll
it's
say
it's always a good week when markets stride higher 5 days straight and make a new all-time high.
Oof, you're making me nervous, feeling like I need to cut back on some longs or something when you start talking like that. But look, to give people a bit of a heads up then of what we're going to cover, kind of 20 minute chat. This is the routine. Myself as the head of market analysis and Piers as the head of trading. We have a catch up at the end of the week. We would do this normally anyway from just a personal situation. We would just talk about markets and stuff, kind of talk about ideas and so on. And we really just wanted to broaden that out. So today we're going to focus on 3 things: stocks at all-time high and what's underpinning that, the general sentiment, where do we go from here? Then we'll pivot that to some of the major headlines of this week and 2 very famous individuals, Bezos and Amazon, and then Mario Draghi back to the fold. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that. So we'll kick things off. Let me just kind of set the scene. So we've got non-farm payrolls coming out later on today. Now, with that, expectations are quite high because in terms of the kind of prelude, if you like, the ISM manufacturing this week, PMI, the highest since Feb 2018. Non-manufacturing highest since February 2019. ADP, pretty much a blowout, 174,000 against expectations of 49,000. Weekly jobless claims, people were getting a little bit nervous about that a couple of weeks back when we were coming up to 1 million again, but we've had the 3rd consecutive decline and the lowest number since last week of November. Allied to that, you've had Fed officials from doves to hawks and in between all coming out saying, look, we're still far away from achieving our goal in terms of debating a scaling back of their massive bond buying program. So they're on side. You've had earnings come out. You've had phenomenal numbers from the likes of Alphabet, Amazon, and others. We can only go up, right?
Yeah, it's one of those, we use terminology Goldilocks scenario, and this is a perfect example. And it's and I guess when you're talking about Wall Street versus Main Street, this is like, I think this is a scenario where we're kind of peak divergence, like, because if you think about on the ground, everyday people, out there on the streets, COVID is still, obviously, the dominant force in their lives, right? Lockdowns, hospitalizations. The US is slightly behind the UK, and so their wave is probably peaking after our wave. So they're still embroiled right in the mix of it, and yet just as conditions are at their very worst on Main Street, this is where Wall Street is like, wow, happy days, things could not be better. And that's because you get the combination of really powerfully strong economic data, which is indicating that, this whole story about a strong emergence from COVID, this story is on, right? These data points are very positive. Plus, combine that, so you've got an improving economy alongside then a phenomenally sort of stimulative central bank and government. And so the 2-pronged push of fiscal and monetary stimulus, along with an already improving economy, right? And so, it's that Goldilocks scenario where, for stocks, it's economic positive times, and yet the policy setters aren't removing the punch bowl. So double positive, pushing things to new highs.
It's got to be nice timing for Biden. I saw this morning, and you'll remember this from over the years. Himself and the Labour Secretary will be appearing already. They've already said after today's non-farm payrolls report. That was always, I remember back in the days of the trading floor, that would always be, traders would always look for these like kind of, what color tie is Draghi wearing, or who's appearing. And I can't remember who the Labour Secretary was like 10, 15 years ago, but I remember it used to be one of those things that traders would latch onto. If they're appearing and they already announce it after immediately the jobs report on a Friday, it's a good jobs report, and people just start buying into it. Just one of those anomalies, I guess.
Yeah, I guess with Biden, I mean, you could say on the one hand it's bad timing in that he starts office like right in the depths of this sort of pandemic, but then it's very reminiscent of Obama. Obama stepped into office in 2009, January 2009, which is the only other notable event of January 2009 was the launch of Amplify Trading, by the way. But yeah, Obama steps in at the height of the crisis, right? And the thing is it can only get, hopefully, it can only get better, right? And so Obama came in at the worst point, and then he rides the recovery path. And for Biden, it looks like it's going to be the same kind of timing.
Yeah. Well, look, one of the things I briefly mentioned there was timing, and we're talking about Biden, and really a lot of the focus of this chat is about these individuals. And so what's your take on Bezos stepping down? So let me just kind of paint the picture. I was sat at my computer. We know when these earnings are coming out, and I'm always, might sound geeky, I'm always a bit excited when it's the big tech names coming out. I'm just interested to see like just how much do they absolutely smash forecasts, which they inevitably always do. And from a business point of view, check out these numbers from Amazon. Revenue, $125.56 billion in the quarter. They had their EPS came in at $14.09. Expectations were for $7.34. It's just crazy. But I remember I was sat here, I was looking at the aftermarket trade as well as some of the other traders. And it came out just Bezos is stepping down. You could sense a slight trepidation amongst people thinking, hang about, is that a good or a bad thing? It's got to be a bad thing, the assumption. And the aftermarket, the stock price actually dipped about 2%. Yep. Then it popped up flat. Then it actually went up 1%, and it was all over, just pinging around about 4% swing in the initial couple of minutes. So his replacement, so here's the deal. So he's stepping down. And he's going to be replaced by a chap called Andy Jassy, who's, if you haven't heard of Mr. Jassy, then he's a long-time CEO of Amazon Web Services and their cloud computing business, which is definitely a meaningful thing, because that is their new staple of growth, if you like, as a business. And Jassy, just so you're aware, has been at the firm since 1997. So as context, he's not a newbie. He is about as aligned with the master himself as you're going to be. And the other thing here, Bezos did say that the transition, he's going to take a more active role, so executive chair, not non-executive. So he's still going to have a lot of input going forward. But overall, what's your feelings about this type of announcement?
Yeah, I think that on the one hand, succession at the very top of a tech giant is obviously not a new thing for us as investors to have to deal with. Everyone will remember the two giants in Bill Gates and Steve Jobs stepping down from their respective businesses, Microsoft and Apple, of course. And like with any succession, there's uncertainty, and it's not going to be any different here with Amazon. You've had a guy steer this ship for 30 odd years, and obviously at some point he's going to jump off. And so I think the important thing, well, I don't know. There's another thing about, look, this guy's seriously, he's got caliber, all right, Jassy, because AWS, I mean, I know firsthand how much money that thing makes, because as a tech, we've got a tech part to our business, and so we spend a lot of money. We push a lot of money towards AWS, I can tell you, and that thing is a money printing machine. And AWS actually is more profitable than any other part of the business. Often people think Amazon and they think retail, right? Because that's what most people use Amazon for. Their retail part of the business, do you know how much profit it made in 2020?
Go on, hit me.
None. No profit. So it all comes from advertising in AWS, right? And AWS particularly. So he has, for 30 years, this guy, or not quite 30 years, then 25 or whatever, he's been running he's built the most profitable part of Amazon. So look, this guy's not a no one, and he's not an outsider either. So I think, and with Bezos, definitely, he's going to be a backseat driver for a couple of years, right? So I think the succession risk here isn't huge. I don't think the trajectory for Amazon particularly changes. I think Bezos, though, so to kind of put a different hat on, I think he's stepping out at a good time, just because I think that the last 20 years has seen the rise of Amazon. I mean, Amazon's pretty much the only sort of poster child of the dot-com boom that pretty much the only company that actually made it. They because Jassy joined in 97, as you said, that's when Amazon went public. Their IPO was in 97. They were all part of the dot-com boom. It's just they're the only ones that actually delivered on that promise long term. But I think the last 20 years, mostly it's been the tech giants, right? And the FANGs have kind of gone to new, just stratospheric heights. And I think the next decade, I think the challenges for these big tech is going to be a lot more political. And, are the politicians of this world going to start to get ever more fearful of the power and the control that these tech firms have? And therefore, what are they going to do about it? And I think that Bezos is jumping off before really that engine starts firing. And so I think Amazon are fine in the way it's going to be run, but I think those risks for these giant firms are looming, and that's what Jassy's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I did read a couple of research notes talking about that political impact, and actually there was some who had the belief that quite a strong signal for the move from Bezos was to do with the fact that not that long ago, Amazon lost out on a big contract, like a bellwether contract, the US government. Now, obviously, then what happened here was that goes to, in the cloud space, your arch nemesis, which is Microsoft, which are gunning for you in that space. And obviously, Bezos has a lot of other business interests, those being the Washington Post, for example. And that has caused a lot of friction with the previous administration. Obviously, Trump was definitely at loggerheads with the likes of Bezos, but also just generally, and the broad, if Amazon wants to broaden out its geographic reach, that paper that I mentioned has been highly critical of like the Indian government, for example, and a lot of political instability there. And so perhaps it's like you say, it's not like he's gone.
Yeah, no,
it's just takes some of the negative spotlight away from certain areas, I guess. But that's just a part of the equation, I guess. But look, let's move on and talk about the final, the third character in the series, which is the return of Super Mario.
Oh yes,
welcome back. You even WhatsApped me when that happened. You're so giddy with excitement.
I'm not gonna lie. Of all of my man crushes of my life, and there haven't been many, I'm not going to tell you. Well, but my first man crush, Paul Gascoigne. I'm a big Tottenham fan. Anyway, Mario, I hold very fondly in my heart. I mean, anybody who traded through the kind of the aftermath of the financial crisis, and let's be more specific, the Eurozone debt crisis. Anybody who traded through that will know very well that Draghi is an absolute a giant, a powerhouse of a figure who, talk about a kind of safe pair of hands. And he just gets things done. And he's a statesman, and he, of all the, I'm just happy he's back. I've just got a big smile. I've missed him. And I know he's been kind of stuck away in his house in Rome, probably just putting his feet up for a year or so since Lagarde has taken over at the ECB. But yeah, good to see him back in the mix.
Okay, so a less technical point here. Do you think someone like Draghi watches the Christine Lagarde press conferences from his home in Rome and says, God, you know what? This is just embarrassing. I need to get back in here somehow, in some shape or form. He puts the feelers out, and here he is. Because Lagarde gets a lot of criticism, and I think unfairly so. Watching things like the Twitter sphere when she's living a press conference, it's almost just embarrassing watching the amount of aggression towards her. But I do think that she had a hard act to follow. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I think, as I said to you a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago when Lagarde took over, it's like Alex Ferguson, finally stepping down. And Lagarde is like David Moyes, who many won't remember, took over from Ferguson, and it was an absolute disaster. But look, I mean, Lagarde, she had big pedigree, right? But I think the thing about being the ECB president, it's like being that figurehead where you've got to control the media, and your ability to control a press conference is one of the absolute key attributes of that role. And it's like being any kind of key political figure. It's fine. You got to own and control your team internally, but then it's also absolutely about that external message. And are you trusted, and do people have confidence in you? And I think on those two factors, trust and confidence, Draghi delivers in spades, right? Or at least has done. I think this challenge ahead of him, though, is obviously a very different one. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, Italian politics is just, it's a real mess. I don't know. It's and it has been for like 25 years.
On that point, you said 25 years there. So here's a statistic for you. You'll like this one.
Go on.
Don't ask me how I know this. Over the last, let me rephrase this. Over this 160-year period in Italy,
right?
How many governments do you reckon they've had?
Oof, in 160 years?
Yeah.
Well, I know they've been on a run rate of about one every 2 years in recent times. So look, I'm going to go 75.
You might need to double that.
Oh, wow. Really?
So over the 160-year period in Italy to today, they've had 131 governments.
That's
each one then has lasted an average of 15 months.
That's insane. But actually, it's one of the problems, and,
right?
And along with that goes. I mean, certainly in the last, in my kind of adult lifetime, so let's say 20 years, Italy has been the absolute underperformer of Europe in terms of economic growth and economic reform. And this is why, I mean, and look, and Draghi, right, this is going to be a technocratic government, like emergency government, unelected prime minister. And it's like, wow, okay, that's pretty extraordinary, except it's not for Italy. This is Draghi's the fifth technocratic, unelected prime minister in the last 15 years.
That in itself just shows how fragmented Italian politics is. Yeah. You need an external person to come in to sort the house out.
But what's really important, the timing's good, because they're about to get a 200 billion euro check to spend on a recovery plan from COVID. And Europe wants them to spend it in a way that deals with these long-term legacy lack of reform issues. And Draghi, of all people, Draghi's top of the list of the person who might be able to deliver on that. But look, people have waded into Italian politics thinking, right, don't worry, guys, I'll sort it out. I'm here now. It's all going to be fine. And then only for like 18 months later, they crawl back out defeated. So it'll be an interesting watch.
Let's hope your hero delivers the goods, Dan.
Come on, Mario.
All right, great. Well, look, let's wrap it up there. Piers, always a pleasure to talk to you at the end of the week. Just for everyone new to the podcast kind of series, this is the routine. So kind of late on a Friday morning, we'll put out the latest episode, recapping some of the main topics and our views for the week just gone. But otherwise, hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay safe, and Piers, thank you.
Cheers, guys. Have a good weekend.